Hello and welcome to today's VesselBot webinar, The Sweet Spot, How Lindt and Sprüngli uses data intelligence to drive climate action. Let's give one more minute before we start as people are still coming in. In the meantime, I would like to say that we're facing extreme weather conditions in Athens, having rains and thunderstorms that hopefully will not affect the Wi-Fi connection. If it does, don't go away. We will definitely do our best to bounce back. And now let's begin. I'm Maria Bena, Communications Manager at VesselBot, and I'm pleased to welcome listeners from around the world. A few housekeeping details. All participants are muted. You can share your questions by sending them through the comments box. After our speakers conclude their conversation, we will address all the audience's questions in the Q&A session. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be shared with all who are registered along with the presentation. And now a few details about who we are. VesselBot is a technology company that bridges the gap between ambition emission targets and actionable execution strategies. We help logistics, sustainability, and supply chain professionals who have clear sustainability deadlines and targets but need a roadmap to achieve them cost-effectively. Our supply chain sustainability platform transforms your transportation and supply chain data into precise optimization recommendations that reduce both emissions and operational cost simultaneously. Instead of guessing whether to invest in alternative fuels, carbon credits, or carrier changes, you get data-driven insights showing exactly which operational improvements will hit your targets while delivering return on investment. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our speakers. Bart de Monk, the moderator of today's discussion, is an industry expert and thought leader with over 30 years of supply chain and logistics experience across the globe. Bart has worked for major international companies such as EY, GE Capital, Penske Logistics, PepsiCo, as well as several tech companies. Bart spent 8 years as a VP of Research at Gartner and served as the Chief Industry Officer at Project 44. Bart is a sought-after speaker who is currently advising multiple companies and industry organizations in logistics. Johan Spreet is the Corporate Supply Chain Sustainability Manager at Lindt Sprüngli. Johan has an engineering background and nearly 20 years of experience in supply chain for manufacturing, retail, and FMCG sectors. He has been focusing for the last 8 years on making shippers' transportation and distribution more sustainable. This includes setting strategies, building frameworks to support organizations, and finding solutions to deliver ambitious targets. And last but not least, Konstantin Komodormos, the founder and CEO of VesselBot. With over 24 years of experience working in multinational organizations and building startups, Konstantin brings a unique perspective as a fellow member of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. He's seen firsthand how companies struggle with a gap between sustainability ambitions and operational reality, which is exactly why he created VesselBot to solve this problem. Bart, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And just a couple of more notes. Throughout the conversation, we're also going to do a couple of polling questions just to make sure that we also invite you to the conversation and we get a little bit of information about what it is that you're doing. And then at the end of today's conversation, we're going to do an audience Q&A. So please go ahead and use the questions tab that you see on the bottom of your screen to provide us with your questions. We'll get to those at the end of the discussion. Now, as Maria said, today we have the privilege of having a company with us that makes sustainability a core component of their business strategy. Now, it's interesting because Lindt Sprüngli is a 180-year-old company that, as a food company, has many compliance, sustainability, and other challenges thrown at them. There's things like deforestation risk, global traceability, transitioning legacy systems, balancing cost with quality, and addressing Scope 3 emissions. And myself, as a Belgian, I'm happy to admit that I'm a chocoholic. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's someone that eats a lot of chocolate. And I often eat some of the chocolate from Lindt, just like this one is one of my favorite. But another one of our local favorites here is in the US is Russell Stover, especially the pecan delights are a family favorite of ours. So Johan, can we start with a little bit background on Lindt Sprüngli, but also can you explain a little bit about the complexity of your supply chain from sourcing cacao to shipping finished goods and finished chocolate all over the world, and maybe an introduction to your sustainability program?
Yes, thanks, Bart. So we'll show a couple of slides to introduce a bit the company. I thought it would be interesting to start with Maître Chocolatier. So at Lindt, we try to enchant the world with chocolate. And I think it was a good start, like to show our praline made in Switzerland, where you see a bit like we try to make the best chocolate with our know-how. And that's a bit like now what we try to do now on our data and to achieve our sustainability targets. So you will see on our slide a bit of a short profile of the company. So Lindt Sprüngli, the group, has a turnover of around 5.5 billion Swiss franc for last year. We are around 14,000 employees over the world. And we have our own stores, 560 plus stores, but also distributors, retailers around the world. What you see on the picture is actually our market where we distribute, our subsidiaries, as we call it. But we have also 12 production sites in Europe and USA. And we transport basically the goods between the factory and the market via sea freight, road freight, sometimes a little bit, and we try to minimize it, air freight as well. So we have all transport modes. And I will say we work as a decentralized company. That will be interesting later on because we have fragmented data, different process, different country, and that was part of this project and what we'll discuss today. I thought maybe to introduce, we have a sustainability strategy. So we want to care for people and the environment by contributing to cocoa excellence, but also reducing our emission and safe workplace. It's much more aspects, but I will keep it high level. We'll focus on reduce emission today. We started basically the sustainability part with a farming program back to 2008. And now, it has been enriched, embedded in different parts. So it's not only about cocoa, it's also raw material, it's packaging, it's our operation. It's also reduce emission in our value chain. And what you see is the last, let's say, graphic about our indulgence rooted in responsibility, as we call it.
Well, thank you, Johan. Now we have a quick polling question for our audience to see what the main drivers are for your sustainability initiative. So you'll see that appear in the screen. So you have 4 different options there that you can choose from. So we just want to get a little bit of your feedback to see what is going on in your supply chain. And as you're answering those, Johan, we're going to get back to your sustainability journey at Lindt. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how you started on this journey, how did you create your strategy, and then specifically for transportation, what are some of the things that you guys are getting into?
Great. I will show this slide again. So we have a roadmap now to net zero. We started back in 2022, 2023 to try to measure our footprint. And we have actually validated our climate goals by Science Based Targets initiative in 2023. What you see now is a bit like what we call our climate transition plan or roadmap, and it shows a bit the reality. So the 2020, let's say baseline, you see like dark green and light green. It's mainly our raw material, or scope 3 emission, as we call it, indirect emission based on cocoa, other raw material, and light green is everything related to non-forest and land agriculture. And it's about packaging and supply chain mainly. Our scope 1 and 2 is our emission linked to the energy in our facility, and you see that it's very small. So we had to think differently how we could tackle the emission in our value chain. We don't own any cocoa field. We don't own any farm so how to engage our suppliers, how to engage with our carriers. For my part, transport is representing around 8% of our footprint, And actually, our goal with this, as we call it, science-based target, is to reduce between 2020 and 2030 around 25% of our footprint, disregarding the growth. So we could growth double, we still need to achieve those targets. So that's tough. We want to grow, we have an aggressive goal, and we need to reduce our emission. What you see, it's increasing because the first year it has been increasing, mainly driven by volume, but it started to decrease since last year, also linked to the volume, but also the action that we start to implement, and we start to see the result. At the end, our goal is to be net zero, as we call it, so by 2050, and we have a journey ahead. So we focus a lot on, let's say, engaging the people internally, having a network, as we call it, supply chain environmental network, one person in each subsidiary working within supply chain, engage on those topics, creating knowledge, engaging people, service provider. But we have a journey ahead. We have midterm goal by 2030, and then the 2050 road is tough. We still don't know how we will achieve all those targets, and we need to discover new ways to decarbonize. Just to be more precise on transport and distribution, I mean, we have what I call, it's a supply chain decarbonization portfolio. It's more approach. I mean, we don't want just to call a carrier and replace and buy alternative fuel via a certificate or something. No, we want to start with the route or supply chain. Is it well designed? Is it efficiently operated? So we have this pyramid, we call it 4R, and the first pillar is reduce. Do we have a good network? Can we optimize it to minimize transportation? When we have a truck leaving, is it full or is it empty? So the filling rate and all the operational efficiency is very important here. The second step, second R, is replace, where we want to replace our transport solution with less carbon intensive transport mode, so rail instead of road, for example, or alternative fuel and energy. Then we have a step that I call reinvent, which is really to motivate people internally to question the statu quo, find new ways of working, new solution, and adopt better or faster, I would say, innovation. And the last part, reporting, is part of our journey, as I see it. You see a bit of funnel, but we started with our target with some consultants that came to our company and say, yeah, you don't have transport activity everywhere. Fine, we'll find some assumption based on your sales volume. We believe it will be that. And it has been a journey, and it's continuing, that we want to improve and get like real transport activity, better data to really measure where we are and be efficient. And that's where it comes to our project. We have a project to implement a new transport greenhouse gas emission calculator. Thanks, Vesselbot. So we have a bit, and I use AI to do this picture internally. You see the glasses. We saw, and we are on the journey. We have been doing we are at 50% of the implementation of this project, but we see the chocolate a little bit blurry. We want to see really in a precise way. And the starting point is that we had a majority of our transport emission based on top-down assumption, which caused a limited understanding of our transport emission. And we saw some risk of taking sub-optimized decarbonization action, and also difficulty to measure the initiative impact compared to the total footprint. And where we want to go to is to get collect and measure our greenhouse gas at shipment order level. So it means to create data warehouse with all our transport activity, be able to make data-driven decision, account for decarbonization action, and I will say overall manage our transport performance to achieve the group goal. And that's what we have been working since last year and are still actively working on. Just maybe a precision I wanted to put, that's a picture of an electric vehicle in Switzerland, in our headquarters in Kirchberg next to Zurich. It was implemented in 2023 at the time where we had like most of top-down assumption. And what we did as a company, we decided to start to act and implement solution even if we couldn't measure it. So that's an example, and I think it's healthy also not to put it as a prerequisite. Measurement is interesting, want to get visibility, but we need to act. It's the urgency for on our side to implement solution to achieve our goal and also to learn because the scale of change is big. Yeah, that was a little bit my introduction, the context.
Thank you, Johan. And thanks for taking us a little bit behind the scenes, right? How you approach sustainability and then the strategy that you and your team have built. So I just want to come back. We did that first poll, and maybe it doesn't come as a surprise that 53% of people actually responded that compliance, is their first reason why they look into sustainability. So in the next phase, we're going to talk a lot more about sustainability and some of the other opportunities that are actually there in why companies should look into that. And as you pointed out correctly, Johan, this journey really starts with reporting. And obviously, when you do reporting, what you need for that, you need to collect data. Collect the data is at the core. And obviously, that's how you get the reports and the insights you're going to derive from it. Now, it's imperative to have a solid data foundation with high quality data, which you showed on your slide. So, Maria, let's take another polling question from our audience to see how our audience members would describe the quality of their data emissions. So let's see, do you think that your current data is high? Is it medium, low? Or maybe you haven't started that journey yet where you aren't measuring your sustainability. So while you're filling that out, Johan, at what point did you guys at Lindt recognize that kind of your traditional model of kind of using just average factors for data, aggregated data, or even carrier provided estimates wasn't really good enough for your sustainability strategy and journey and your operational objectives, and where you said, you know what, we need a little bit more accurate data? How did that start?
I think we were aware quickly that we didn't have the best data, and we had a need to move to more precise data. The complexity of getting it was a bit the topic. We have like 38 subsidiaries with different data sets. So the collecting the data, making it consistent was a question. Also at Lindt, that's reporting and is quite important. I mean, people take it seriously. So wanted to do something, I would say, relevant. And we took almost a year, I would say, before launching the project. And I would say it's on our side, supply chain was a part, but we see it, I mean, all the scope 3 emission in general, where I needed to improve data collections or to contact, get better primary data. That's a topic I think many companies are facing. On our side was really like to leverage the internal data we had. We had some good level of information on some flow, some specific transportation that we could leverage, or in some area, some region, and some other were like lacking a bit of visibility. And I think that's, let's say the buy-in from our management team was quick. The implementation of the project, the scale of the project was, I would say, foreseen as a big step from the beginning, but there was no too much question on the needs.
Yeah, very good. Now, I'm happy to see as the result of the polling question, thank you, by the way, for everyone for responding to that there's 0% where they say we aren't measuring yet. So that's very hopeful that everyone is measuring, at least the people that are responding. And then actually 73% say that their quality data is medium. I think that's quite a bit higher than maybe what we would have seen about a year ago. So I think we're going the right way. Now, Constantine, now I'm coming to you. Right? Obviously, the journey begins with data, as we mentioned. So how do you at Vesselbot help companies to really achieve that granular, accurate measurement of transportation emissions data independent of mode? How do you go about helping customers like Lindt and others with that?
Bart, allow me to clarify a bit what we refer to good quality data and because there's a misconception about primary data. Primary data means not necessarily data that you get from a carrier. You might be getting carrier data, but it's not primary in the sense primary would refer to having actual fuel consumptions, actual execution milestones, all those information that would give you that kind of granularity needed. What Vesselbot does, and answering to your question, and I'm a bit puzzled always by responses in polls like this one. And that's why you see me clarifying what primary data is, because we see a lot of different interpretations in the market. What we do is we utilize data that our customers have on their own data sets. So whatever information they're holding on the shipment data, on the shipment information, we can collect data from their own carriers, their own freight forwarders, in the sense we are connected to track and trace systems, freight visibility systems providers, you name it. And on the other hand side, we enrich those data. We can enrich those data via satellite data for geospatial data for ocean-going vessels, or called AIS, or ADSB for aircrafts, or even telematics for trucks. So collecting actual primary data on how the execution of each shipment is being done. So that gives you that granularity, complementing the information that is being held on our customer systems with the information that is being held from carriers, 3PLs, forwarders, other sources of information. So this becomes a big data lake, like the one that Johan referred to, that can give you that extra granularity in the velocity of data that enables you to make alternative types of decisions.
Perfect, Constantine. Now, Johan, once you get that data, right, that also gives you the opportunities to start sharing that data, both internally with maybe different organizations within your company, as well as externally. Now, have you guys done that? And have you seen kind of maybe the benefits, but sometimes maybe also challenges around sharing of that data and collaboration opportunities? And how would you say it allows you to collaborate more and better, either with your partners, maybe in other parts of your own organization, or, for example, with carriers or freight forwarders?
Yeah, I mean, we need to be a little bit humble. We're still learning, it's recent, so we are not mature enough now to go towards service provider explaining what we see and so on. What we do is to collect feedback, sharing in a number of ways, comparing with our service provider, and also trying to get a bit of interest from our service provider to share more data to improve. So that's also a way. As I see it, the project we're implementing in Vesselbot can process, I would say, the data in different level, different quality level, and that's quite flexible for us. So that was a requirement, like we have different maturity of data. And I would say the idea was to get like first unified footprint, and then with the possibility to go more granular over time. So that's, again, back to the journey, what I see in the future. That's a bit an off-star where we want to go, but we need to do it where it matters. We have a large share for transportation that is a bit more than half. That is actually less than truckload. So in that case, we have less impact, more complex. That's probably not where we need to start. However, we have some specific transportation dedicated to Lindt where we see an interest. We have some modes where we are interested. I mean, sea freight, for example, it's a good one. And I think here, I mean, will be part of the operational review, the sharing with carrier, as long as we are a bit more mature, I would say, with it. And we're on a good way.
Sure. Yeah. And I think it's a journey for everyone, right? Now, talking about that journey, we talked about the data, we talked about the reporting. Obviously, we want to get to, the real goal is to create better decisions that we can then put into action. And so around that point, we actually have a third and final polling question to see where the audience sees the biggest opportunities in decarbonization. So you're going to see that appear here as well. Which of these 4 areas do you see as a big opportunity for your organization? Or maybe you haven't identified an opportunity yet, or you believe there isn't one. So let's answer that as well and see where maybe you can go and make some immediate impact in your organization doing that. So Johan, that asked me the question is, now that you have the reporting, I think you had a couple of different actions on your pyramid slide of some of the things you guys are doing, maybe around lanes, around modeling. So maybe if I dumb the question down, what do you actually do with all the data and all the reporting inside? How do you go about it? And then saying, how do we take something that's data on the screen to maybe putting it in action?
Yeah, so our way of working, we have some a cycle of action plans. So we do an action plan yearly, and we try to fit also the budget process. So we know what we'll do the following year before the budget is agreed. So that's kind of aligned within the company. So far, if I relate to your question, what we have seen, good potential when it comes to operational efficiency in some market, depending, we have a different market with different situation. And I will say also some, of course, potential in big countries with intermodal rail instead of truck, a bit of short sea in some area. But the biggest potential we have seen so far was to switch to alternative fuel. So Western Europe, second generation biofuel, HGO, was identified as a big opportunity. And then it depends. We have the luck actually to have a good service provider carrier that are mature. We have different ones, but some are mature and proposing quite proactively some solution. And that's what was identified as the biggest potential after the 2 cycles we have done so far of action plan. In the future, I hope we'll get also more on the other part. Radius is also part. North America, the team is doing a great job with optimizing the transport being more efficient. But I would say it depends really the maturity of the country, the business setup, the volume as well, of course. And it depends also, I would say, I didn't mention, but constraints. We want to transport premium chocolate, it's temperature control. So we are also, let's say, focusing on the quality of our product, and we don't want to sacrifice that. So far, it's not an option just to go to another carrier, because we have a new project with sustainability. We want really to partner with our service provider, embed it in the discussion, and that's how we have been doing it so far.
Yeah, great insight. Thank you, Johan, for sharing those. Now, Constantine, and as we see the results of the poll here, 67% said alternative fuels, electric vehicles, then carrier mode optimization. What do you see out there, Constantine, that companies are doing more in general in the industry? And where do you see that, based on the data and your own research and what you guys are providing, are some other great opportunities?
If you ask me, Bart, alternative fuels shouldn't be the first priority. At least that's how I think about decarbonization strategies. And by that, I mean, we all know that there are a lot of inefficiencies in the way that we operate logistics and the way that we do execute. And also, given the high velocity of changes that we see in the geopolitical, in the economic environment, logistics needs to move rapidly in many senses, and that means that the design of the network and how we execute logistics changes dramatically. So having good quality of data, being able to provide you with those insights that may enable you to adapt that strategy and the network and the modes that you're using, the carriers that you're using, all these kind of things, is really tied to sustainability as well. And sustainability and emissions should be part of that decision-making process and the data that you're holding to make those decisions. So for me, logistics optimizations overall in different capacities, either this is called, as Johan mentioned, increasing the utilization of the containers on given trade lane, on given modes, with given carriers, having a bigger picture visibility on the contract itself and how that can change in between incentivizing your carrier to reduce emissions. We have EUAs for ocean transportation now. Not the carriers are passing down the cost of allowances, so in fuel surcharges. How can you make alternative decisions to reduce that? Do you know the cost of the EUA and the surcharges? Can you hedge that? So there are quite a few things that, although we don't recognize, they have a financial impact to each organization that has transportation initiatives, logistics, which should be taken into consideration. And that can only be done with high quality, high velocity data that is constantly being streamed to logistics teams, to procurement teams, to sustainability teams, to treasury teams that have that information, enabling them to make decisions.
Yeah, thank you, Constantine. I want to remind the audience, please provide us with your questions, because again, we'll get to those in 5 minutes or so. We're going to start answering some audience questions. Now, Johan, as you mentioned in the introduction, it is a journey, right? We discussed where you started, your whole strategy, how metrics have evolved into action. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the next phase on your journey. So what do you see are some of the next things that you are trying to do, but maybe also some of the organizational challenges that you might see within Lindt as you are starting to operationalize sustainability?
I mean, there are still a couple of areas where we could embed the carbon footprint as a decision in the decision-making process. Obviously, I mean, production network or distribution network, like how do we optimize where we produce, for which market, which product should be where. But it's also, I mean, we have a couple of examples that are quite inspiring. I mean, we have a product that's fantastic for Christmas. It's called Advent Calendar, where you have you are opening the box. The problem is that it's a lot of air. And we did actually before measuring, but there was a project implemented between Europe producing the chocolate, but also co-packing it to sell it to North America and Canada. And just the fact to move the co-packing facility on the other side of the Atlantic, we save a lot of transportation because the bulk transportation of the chocolate is much less space. So those kind of topics are a bit complex to tackle, to measure. So that's something that I wish we could, or we will be able to, let's say, account and consider in the decision making. For the rest, yes, the sharing data with carrier is the next step. So reviewing with them the performance, optimizing. I mean, for ocean, I see like potential. Let's see how it will be implemented. But probably the different carriers, different footprint, but the service, a service with the same carrier versus within the same carrier, like two different services may have completely different footprint. And the difference, it's huge. And just to go into this level of granularity, eventually the vessel level, that's interesting. Now we have the possibility to do it. Let's see how our sourcing team will manage to do that. We'll be together, probably piloting some things, but we see an interest in that. And also it's a good message to the carrier, like why this vessel, you use a feeder that is very carbon intensive on this area. Why don't you use this one? So that I hope will narrow it down to this kind of topic to be able to select really the best solution, including also the carbon footprint.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Johan. Now, Constantine, we're getting more to a world of decision intelligence and execution. And it's very important in a world that's continuously being disrupted with huge impacts on supply chains. So everyone's looking at maximizing resilience and agility. How should they look forward in looking at these solutions like VesselBot to kind of say, how do we use opportunities like rerouting, dynamic mode shifts, all these others to really give them that agility in their organization?
I've had this discussion early on this morning with a potential customer, Bart, and what I was explaining is that sustainability initiatives are usually not seen as a way that they can drive value. However, let's see the context. Many organizations have really siloed data, different formats, sitting in different databases, different way that they have the data quality, as Johan explained at the beginning, that was and is the case. So having the initiative of collecting all this data and putting them into one location allows you to have the bigger picture. If you put things into perspective and in conjunction with what is happening, you can run simulations on what the potential impact of the Red Sea implication and Suez Canal closure and potential impact in the delay of your shipments, what that would mean for your manufacturing, what that would mean for your stock levels, what that would mean for your emissions. So being able to collect all the data in a data warehouse, allows you to be dynamic in the sense that you can collect all the data and run any type of analysis using AI, using machine learning, whatever that might be called, so that you can more rapidly adapt to the situation and control and have a way that you make impactful decisions in a much faster manner and identify potential ways that you resolve them or minimize the impact in such a way that it wouldn't create a big problem to the organization. So this is an initiative that can drive value, and it can drive value if it is done in the proper way, that you collect proper good data throughout your network and into one source.
Yeah, very good. And I fully agree, Constantine. Sometimes people think sustainability is all about compliance. It was actually a word that I think first appeared in the 18th century in Germany, and it's more about sustaining your organization, which is sustaining both from a cost, sustaining your service, sustaining your manufacturing. It's a lot broader than just compliance. So with about 7 minutes left, let's go to some of the audience questions that are out there. And again, if you have questions, please don't be afraid to ask them. So maybe, Johan, first question for you. If you look at sustainability, you talked about Scope 3 emissions being a huge part. How do you actually work kind of with your logistics team, right? To make that a priority as well, to say, you know what, we really need to look at sustainability kind of, more from a day-to-day operational perspective. How do you go about that in collaborating around that and making it more of a priority?
I mean, luckily that was joining the company. I saw that actually my colleagues in different countries have quite an appetite for the topic. I mean, I have to say that it's the supply chain teams are usually dealing with, let's say, problems. Sometime in the urgency, and here it's very nice to step back and look at your business, say where I want to be in 5 years time, in 6 years' time, what can we do? And how about those innovative solutions, how to implement it? So the feedback actually was quite good. Also, some people were really willing and motivated to work on the topic. So the engagement at the beginning was quite high from the beginning. Then I will say from company point of view, the fact to embed the sustainability goals in our plan, in strategic plans, make people accountable, that was a key. And then depending on the country, the priority, it could be that sometimes we move a bit less fast in one country than the other one, that is focusing on some, let's say, more urgent topic that could be sometimes, but didn't postpone the ambition. So the ambition is there. You may have like a plan that is a bit less, let's say, urgent in one country compared to the other because of business priority and the maturity of the market. But overall, I will say the engagement on the topic due to its the sustainability, let's say the appetite of the employee, the innovation, the strategic part was quite important. And overall, I will say the company, the culture, I mean, we deliver what we promise. So that's also internally a lot of pressure to deliver, to have it our goals. So that's healthy to start a new, let's say, agenda. We are serious about it, and actually drove up the appetite to have better data quite early on, because, hey guys, I implemented something, you cannot see the result. Why? And that's challenging internally ourselves to be able to account and to measure what we are doing is quite healthy, I think.
Yeah, and Johan, we got another question here from the audience, and you mentioned the advent calendar. One audience member is a little concerned with some of the products that use non-recyclable foil. I think you guys are actually doing a lot of, and that's the question, are you doing more sustainable packaging options? I think that's a big part of your strategy as well. Can you maybe talk a little bit about its transportation, but a lot of it is also around packaging?
Yep. So that's, I have a colleague working as Center of Excellence for Packaging that is driving those initiatives. But at the end, for each market, there are some targets on recycled material. It's also about less packaging, and how to operationalize it is the topics on those specific. I think we have also some technical issue. We need to be able to keep the product in a good shape and so on, but there is a lot of project ongoing, and my colleague will be better placed to give some example, but it's on the agenda.
Yeah, and maybe Johan, the final question for you. Now, obviously, Lindt is a global company, obviously European company, but as I mentioned before, you have big brands here in North America. Besides your European brands having chocolates here, we have Ghirardelli here, we have Russell Stover, big global company. Now, how do you ensure that sustainability data is kind of consistent across all of these different regions? Because I think you're dealing as well with different infrastructure, different applications all over the world. How can you look at that from a global perspective?
I mean, we have minimum requirements. So we have a kind of data template, like what we need to measure our transport footprint. And we have like the mandatory data, we have the important one and the optional, and that's we process it in the same tool, and that's bring a lot of quality. And then we follow the GLEC standard. So the Smart Freight Center has developed a standard, a framework to account the greenhouse gas emission for transportation. We follow that. That's also narrowing the measurement and the discrepancy now. I mean, it could be, I would say, once you use the same tool, it's more the level of data or the quality of data that will bring a little bit of discrepancy, but you are really already into some kind of consistent data.
Yeah, thank you, Johan. For the final question, it's to Johan, is my question. So, everyone's on this journey, right? And it's very important, besides being on this journey, is picking the right partner to go on that journey with. So, Konstantin, where should a company really start and focus? And how should they look at their journey going forward?
Look, and this touches upon what Johan was saying with data and consistency. You need to have a consistent way that you report emissions, measure emissions, and that can be done, of course, via frameworks like the one Johan mentioned. On the other hand side, you need to have measurement in a consistent way, and that means you have one way of appraising everyone. So if you're using carriers data, like what we saw from our audience, each carrier might be using a different methodology, a different way they are applying a framework or whatever. So not being consistent in the way that you have data calculated is also another topic. For me, however, the most important element is to be able to have that kind of granularity of shipment execution data, and the provider that can use models to depict and use those granular data of shipment execution. So instead of using average conversion factors multiplied by a distance, you need to go and get a much more detailed way that calculations are done, not because of reporting purposes, but because of that granularity can enable you to move across the board in regards to your data maturity and respectively the actionability of the data and the way that you can drive change both internally and externally in collaboration with your carriers. And actually what we see here is a maturity graph that we created depicting the different levels of maturity of data and the impact this can have to an organization.
Great. I think that's all the time we have for today. So I want to thank Maria and Konstantin and Vesselbot for hosting this very interesting webinar. Johan, thank you so much for these great insights and talking about what you guys are doing, some of the challenges you currently have, some of the parts in the journey that you still have to go. I think sustainability is an incredibly important part. I'm pretty sure they're discussing it as we speak in Davos as well as a big topic. It's not easy, but it's a journey people have to go on. There's a lot of opportunities, as Konstantin said. It's not just about being compliant. There's a lot of other opportunities from a quality perspective, from a cost savings perspective. So again, thank you to the audience as well for participating in the polling questions. Thank you for your questions. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and hopefully with a nice piece of chocolate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.